We begin with Max pulling into a museum parking lot, confusing the kids since they were supposed to be in a rush. He tells them that he needs to meet up with someone inside and they can go on the tour while he's in there. While on tour, we get Hex and the battle with Accelerate the same as in the show, except with Max missing from action and Gwen throwing a flower pot at the back of his head instead of the barrel, since the flower pot wouldn't be expensive. Accelerate then takes down Hex just as he does in the show, and like in the show, he knocks one of the charms away. He picks it up after beating Hex. And unlike in the show, he doesn't stop to have pictures taken, and thus we don't have Gwen bitching about getting attention. So instead, we just cut back to them in the RV with Ben still looking at the charm. Ben doesn't really know what to think about it, and is about to put it into his souvenir box, but it flashes for a split second when Gwen sits down, and so he slides it across the table instead, telling Gwen, "Seems it's more your thing than mine." When Gwen picks it up, the charm glows in her hand as the color glows around her too, confusing them. The episode then continues basically the same from there, except that when they are walking in the street, they are going to continue the meeting with Max's friend, whomever that was. From there, the episode continues to play out as normal with Gwen donning the Lucky Girl costume, only Ben doesn't change into Wild Mud, he actually goes Forearms. While Forearms moves the heavy beam that crushed the truck to get the guy out of harm's way, Lucky Girl uses the charm to help save the other two workers there. Though the reporter does try to interview both Forearms and Lucky Girl, Ben starts to time out, and so both of them ditch them thanks to the charm. After changing back and getting a look at Gwen in her outfit, Ben quirks an eyebrow and asks what Gwen was supposed to be. She tells him her hero name, making him laugh, before asking if she was serious. When she asked if he could come up with anything better, he then suggests Lady Luck instead. This time, Gwen quirked an eyebrow as Ben shrugged. Later on the road, Gwen was talking about some research she'd done and found out the thing Ben gave her was a magical luck charm of Bazel. Unlike in the show, Ben doesn't argue with Gwen about the charm because he remembered that it glowed for her but not for him, though he does tell her to be careful because he doesn't want to see her get hurt. The whole haunted house thing Hex does happens, except Ben is working with Gwen as Lucky Girl rather than them fighting over who is going to be the hero. So everything that happens in the show, it's the same except it's intentional rather than accidental. Though when Hex starts after her, it's Forearms that slows him down, telling her to run because Hex is after the charm. The charm thankfully helps Gwen get away and to the underground area as Hex blasts Forearms back before going after her. From there, Ben times out and he and Grandpa Max make chase after Hex and Gwen to keep the charm from him. Gwen actually relies on the charm to help her get away from Hex from bringing part of the catacombs onto him and tripping, which made him blast open a way to the surface in a cemetery, giving her somewhere to run to. Growing out of breath, she tries to hide behind a tree as Hex is walking towards her. Using the trees to tie up Gwen, Hex manages to take the charm, though it's Max that cuts Gwen free of the branches with some sort of pocket laser thing, confusing them. Though he tells them he got it from the person he met up with. It wouldn't be much effect on Hex though. Gwen looks around and spots Hex with all the charms and the book he tried to steal earlier, casting spells. When Ben's watch timed back in, he changed into Diamond Head to fight Hex, putting him into a building before landing on the ground and telling Max and Gwen to stay back. Hex starts to do a spell to bring the statues to life, but Ben fires crystal shards at him, cutting off the spell, telling Hex that he talks too much. Hex fires a blast from his staff, but Diamond Head uses his crystals to reflect it back at him, like we had seen him done earlier on against the Vilgax robots, showing Ben's learning. The blast hits part of the stone tomb that Hex had been standing on, sending him falling off guard to the ground and making him drop the charms, and Max knocking Hex out before he could regain his senses. When Max turns back towards the kids, he sees Gwen throwing the charms onto a stone slab and nodding to Diamond Head, who then asks if she was sure, because she could be a formidable hero. But she nods, and so Diamond Head slams his arm down on the stone and the charms, breaking them, releasing the power from them. With Hex X being arrested and the three of them back on the road trip, Ben sees that Gwen did seem sort of depressed about giving up the stones, as he tells her that, with or without powers, I couldn't have made it this far without you, getting him a hug from her in response, making Ben blush slightly.